Imagine driving across the open plains of the United States a century ago. As far as the eye could see, red bodies and white faces dominated the landscape. For decades, this single image represented American beef itself. Hereford cattle were not just a breed. They were the backbone of ranching, the standard by which all others were measured. And yet today, many people ask the same question. What happened to the Herefords that once ruled American ranches? Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write a comment sharing what you already know, or think you know, about the rise and fall of Hereford cattle. Your participation helps this story reach more people who care about the history behind the food on their table. To understand how dominant Herefords once were, we need to return to the early 20th century. Imported from England in the 19th century, Hereford cattle quickly proved ideal for American conditions. They were hardy, calm, efficient grazers, and capable of thriving on grass in environments where other breeds struggled. By the first half of the 20th century, Herefords represented an overwhelming majority of beef cattle in the United States. In some periods, nearly 9 out of every 10 beef animals carried the distinctive white face. This dominance was not accidental. The beef market of that era rewarded exactly what Herefords provided. Ranchers wanted cattle that matured early, put on fat efficiently, and produced consistent carcasses. Consumers, meanwhile, valued heavily marbled meat, and packers paid premiums for animals that reached finishing weight quickly. Genetic selection followed those incentives. Breeders intentionally favored smaller-framed cattle that matured faster, deposited fat earlier, and required fewer resources to finish. For several decades, the system worked perfectly. Herefords became synonymous with reliability. Ranchers trusted them, feedlots understood them, and processors built entire grading expectations around their carcass characteristics. But agriculture does not stand still, and neither do consumer preferences. By the middle of the 20th century, subtle cracks began to appear in the foundation of Hereford dominance. As the nation changed, so did the beef industry. Advances in refrigeration, transportation, and nutrition transformed how cattle were raised and marketed. At the same time, consumers began to shift their preferences. Excess fat, once seen as a sign of quality, increasingly became a liability. By the 1960s, leaner cuts and higher red meat yield started to command better prices. Suddenly, the very traits that had made Hereford successful were being questioned. Hereford cattle, shaped by decades of selection for early fat deposition, struggled to compete under these new standards. Packers paid less for carcasses that carried too much external fat, and feedlots looked for animals that could grow larger frames with more muscle before finishing. Other breeds, particularly those that naturally produced leaner carcasses, began to gain attention. Angus cattle, long present but less dominant, were especially well positioned to benefit from this shift. This was not the disappearance of Herefords, but it was the beginning of a transformation that would permanently change their role in American ranching. Breeders faced a choice: adapt or fade into history. And the decisions made during this period would shape not only the future of the breed, but the structure of the modern beef industry itself. A transition that becomes even clearer when we look at how competition and crossbreeding reshaped the market. As competition intensified, the dominance of a single breed became increasingly unrealistic. Ranchers were no longer looking for tradition alone. They wanted results that matched the new economics of beef production. This shift opened the door for crossbreeding, a practice that would dramatically alter the role of Herefords in American ranches. One of the most influential outcomes of this change was the rise of the Black Baldy. By crossing Hereford cattle with Angus, ranchers combined the maternal strength, docility, and fertility of the Hereford with the carcass traits and lean meat profile of Angus. The result was an animal that performed better across multiple metrics, especially in commercial operations focused on efficiency rather than pedigree purity. This strategy took advantage of heterosis, also known as hybrid vigor. Crossbred cattle often show improved fertility, faster growth rates, stronger immune systems, and greater overall adaptability. For large-scale producers, these advantages translated directly into profit. As a result, many ranchers who once relied exclusively on purebred Herefords began using Hereford genetics primarily as part of crossbreeding programs. At the same time, purebred Hereford associations recognized the urgency of modernization. The American Hereford Association invested heavily in performance testing, data-driven selection, and new breeding technologies. Artificial insemination allowed superior genetics to spread more efficiently, while performance records helped breeders identify animals that could meet modern market demands. This period marked a critical evolution within the breed. Breeders began selecting for larger frames, improved muscling, better feed conversion, and reduced excess fat. The goal was not to abandon the traditional strengths of Herefords, but to refine them for a new era. Adaptability, efficiency, and resilience became the guiding principles of genetic improvement. Despite these efforts, public perception continued to shift. Angus branding, reinforced by aggressive marketing and premium programs, captured consumer attention in ways Herefords never had. The black hide became associated with quality in the minds of buyers, even when actual differences in eating experience were often subtle or non-existent. This branding advantage further reduced the visibility of Herefords in the commercial spotlight. Yet beneath the surface, Hereford genetics never stopped working. On challenging rangelands, in harsh climates, and in systems where maternal efficiency mattered most, Herefords continued to prove their value. Their calm temperament reduced stress and injury. Their strong mothering ability improved calf survival. Their ability to thrive on forage lowered input costs for producers operating on thin margins. Rather than vanishing, the breed quietly repositioned itself. Herefords became specialists rather than rulers. They no longer dominated by sheer numbers, but by strategic importance within breeding systems designed for long-term sustainability. This quieter role often goes unnoticed, but it is precisely what keeps the breed relevant in a highly competitive industry. And today, as market pressures evolve once again, the story of the Hereford breed enters another chapter, one defined not by nostalgia, but by efficiency, adaptability, and a renewed appreciation for traits that modern ranching can no longer afford to ignore. In the current landscape of American beef production, Herefords occupy a position shaped by experience rather than dominance. They are no longer the most visible breed in feedlots or advertising campaigns, but their influence remains deeply embedded in the industry. Modern Herefords are the product of decades of careful genetic refinement, designed to meet the demands of efficiency, sustainability, and profitability. Today's Hereford cattle are leaner, more muscular, and better balanced than their mid-20th century counterparts. Selection programs emphasize feed conversion efficiency, structural soundness, fertility, and longevity. These traits matter more than ever as producers face rising costs, environmental pressures, and shrinking profit margins. In this context, the breed's natural hardiness and adaptability have regained importance. Maternal performance is one of the Hereford's strongest assets in the modern era. Cows are known for their fertility, ease of calving, and strong mothering instincts. These characteristics reduce labor, veterinary intervention, and calf loss, making them especially valuable in extensive grazing systems. As a result, demand for Hereford genetics continues to grow within crossbreeding programs focused on long-term herd productivity. The American Hereford Association continues to guide the breed's evolution using advanced data analysis, genomic tools, and performance benchmarks. Rather than resisting change, the breed has embraced it. Modern breeders understand that survival in the beef industry depends on measurable results, not historical reputation. This approach has allowed Herefords to remain competitive even as market preferences continue to shift. Consumer trends are also coming full circle. As interest grows in grass-fed beef, regenerative agriculture, and low-input production systems, the traits that once made Herefords dominant are being rediscovered. Their ability to perform well on forage, tolerate environmental stress, and maintain condition without excessive supplementation aligns closely with these emerging priorities. The question then is not what happened to the Herefords, but what role they were always meant to play. Their story is not one of extinction, but of adaptation. They moved from being the default choice to becoming a strategic one. From rulers of the range to quiet contributors to some of the most efficient herds in the country. If this history surprised you, leave a comment sharing what changed your perspective. The story of the Hereford breed is a reminder that success in agriculture is never permanent, but resilience often is.